Okay, Chapter 5. Prelude, the transformation of man. When man shall at last know God, he shall then be transformed. Dynamic knowledge of the identity and presence of God within the soul of man and throughout all nature is a necessary stage for the human race to attain before it is possible for him to build an enduring civilization of unity and brotherhood. The only reason man has never known God is because he is still in his intellectual infancy, and his ideals and practices are still pagan and barbarous. To know God, man must know what light is, and energy, magnetism, electricity, gravitation, and God's processes in the building of bodies, which manifest His presence and His purpose. And he must know the mysteries of life, death, and growth, and of the seed into which even the giant oak disappears, but still retains its identity. And he must know how man retains his identity when he also disappears. No man has yet known these things. The concepts of modern sages regarding them are totally unlike God's processes. The conclusions of man regarding them are the conclusions of his senses. His mind has never yet pierced their illusion. He still senses effects without knowing their cause. These things you shall now know, and when you comprehend them within your inner self, you will then know God. We shall now devote this entire chapter to the complete understanding of the identity and presence of God. It has always been presumed that God is and forever will be incomprehensible and improvable, because He is invisible, and that which will not respond to human senses must be beyond human knowing. That is not true. The invisible can be known and comprehended, even though it cannot be seen. One cannot see gravity, but one can know and comprehend it, for one must obey it or perish. Polarity, truth, silence, and love cannot be seen, but these invisible realities constitute the great powers which rule the universe, and they too can be known. Climaxing all these is your mind. You cannot see your mind, nor ours, but you can know that your mind is the basis of you, and that it controls your visible body. Likewise, you cannot see God's mind, yet you can know that this universe is His creation, and that He rules it with a power which you also cannot see, but you must obey it together with all creating things. Primate man demanded a God who could be seen. He worshipped the sun, then made idols. Our present civilization is still pagan. It has never passed beyond that stage. The great mass of mankind still conceives a huge, objective, man-shaped God with emotions of wrath and vengeance. It is time that the human race should know God as He is. A happy, progressive, and enduring race is impossible until that new dawn of conscious awareness of His ever-present being is intimately close to us always. How far away from that day are we? Out of the world's pagan thousands of millions, there are but a few who have begun to comprehend that the path to the light of the inner kingdom is illumined with love, and that love is inevitable and irrevocable law, which no one can violate and survive. Our present almost primitive civilization is barbarian in the respect that it is attempting to survive, endure, be happy, and prosperous by violating God's law of love. Man has not yet learned that he cannot violate or break God's law, but that the law can break him. When man thinks he is breaking the law by hurting his brother, he is but fulfilling the law of balance, which re-gives to him the hurt which he has intended to inflict upon another. You shall now begin to know that great mystery which has for ages hidden its face from man. That knowledge of the identity of God will so increase your spiritual unfolding that your inner sensory perception will lead you far into the path which leads to the Brahmic bliss, which Buddha bade men seek, or the kingdom of heaven, which Jesus told man to seek. It is not possible for this age of man to comprehend God unless false conceptions of electricity, magnetism, gravitation, energy, and the construction of the atom, as now conceived, are eliminated and replaced with nature's ways and processes. All of man's fundamental conceptions have been the result of forming conclusions which have been based upon the outer vision of the senses, and not upon the inner vision of the mind. The senses see illusion, and are mightily deceived. Mind vision does not deceive, for cause begins there, and effect is but its product. The truth of all fundamentals of nature is just the reverse of the conclusions of science, just as the reflections in a mirror are the reverse of their cause. These conclusions began with someone rubbing amber and glass with wool and silk, and progressed through Newton and other very much deceived observers, up to the fantasy of Niels Bohr's impossible atom, which had no resemblance to nature whatsoever. The gravity concept at least resembles nature in reverse, but the Rutherford Bohr atom has not even that virtue. When we explain the true nature of electricity, we will clearly demonstrate that the familiar model of the atom, which shows electrons moving in orbits of many intersecting planes around one centering nucleus, is an utter impossibility in nature. It defies every principle of the electric current and the wave, and should therefore be relegated to pure invention. It is difficult to describe the shocking effect such a concept has upon an illuminate who can see into the atomic or stellar systems without microscope or telescope, while the outer vision cannot even discern what holds matter together with $20 million cyclotrons. When you know nature's working principle, you will comprehend what a shock it is to know that it is possible for an enlightened age to believe that electrons in certain numbers revolve around inert gases. When you know what the office of inert gases is in nature, you will be even more shocked. To exemplify our meaning, let us remind you of the familiar belief that magnetism is a force, separate and apart from electricity, which has the power to pick up nails or a bar magnet and tons of iron on a giant magnet. Scientific terminology is redundant with references to such effects as magnetic lines of force, the Earth's magnetic field, and electromagnetism, when every effect attributed to magnetism is solely electric. Furthermore, there is no such separate force as magnetism, which performs the work of creation. That which man thinks of as a magnetic force is spiritual light of mind, and not a physical working force of creation. Likewise, we hear constant references to negative electricity, negative charge, and negatively charged particles, which are as impossible in nature as silent sound is impossible. Perhaps the most fundamental of misconceptions is the Coulomb electric law, which says that opposites attract, and that gravitation also is a force which pulls inward from within, and that it attracts other bodies, when in fact both of these beliefs are just the opposite from the facts of nature upon which they were misconceived. Coupled with this unnatural conception is the equally unnatural one to the effect that the universe was created about 2 billion years ago and is now radiating its energy away instead of it being created eternally. With this concept, there is no room for an uphill flow of energy. There is but a downhill flow. Knowledge of the nature of electricity would quickly dispel that idea that the universe itself is on its way to death. There are two opposed actions to every electric pulsation. One of them is genero-active, which multiplies compression. That is nature's uphill flow, which charges. The other is radioactive, which multiplies expansion, and that is its downhill flow, which discharges. For this reason, it is time that we begin to know the true nature of electricity and magnetism, rather than theorize from what our senses tell us. Figure 9 illustrates the modern conception of electricity, which is not in conformity with nature. When the true nature of electricity is comprehended, it will then be possible to comprehend why the Rutherford-Bohr atom concept is utterly unlike nature. You will gradually understand that all nature is based upon the love principle, which is expressed by giving and re-giving. Nature never takes. The present concept of gravity is based upon taking, for it supposedly pulls inward from within itself. Nature does not work that way. Nature does not even absorb from within, nor are there inward explosions in nature, nor is there such a force as attraction or contraction. This seems to be an amazing statement, but it is a true one, nevertheless, as we shall see when we go back to cause and are no longer deceived by the illusions of effect. Man's concept of gravity as being an attractive force which pulls inward from within is diametrically opposed to the facts of nature. Gravity is the controlling center of a compressive electric force, which is exerted from the outside of matter instead of within it. As you gradually understand the electric wave and its enclosing cubic wave field, and the balance principle upon which all motion is based, you will have different concepts in relation to attraction, contraction, absorption, balance, and the universal equilibrium. When you fully comprehend what the invisible light is, and the two divided lights are, you will also have a different concept of matter. With this necessary prelude finished, we will now proceed to build true concepts as a basis for your comprehension of God and His process for creating the pairs of units of divided light in motion, which are known as matter. So fully has science been deceived by the illusions of motion that it has built up a great field of its own in the scientific world, which is commonly known as nuclear physics. As its name implies, this concept is based upon the belief that the atom is held together from its inside by a nucleus, and that nucleus is composed of certain particles which act upon each other in some mysterious and unexplained way to hold themselves together and cause oppositely charged particles, known as electrons, to revolve around them. These electrons supposedly revolve in shell-like layers around the nucleus. By adding one more electron to each element, it becomes the next element in the series. There are no particles are groups of particles which hold the atom together as nuclei. Gravity does not work that way. All creating matter is centered by holes of space, except one element in each octave. The energy of creation centers each whole. That centering, invisible, omnipotent energy is God's mind and your mind. Naturally, you cannot see it, but you can know it, for it is your identity and your intelligence. It is the source of your creations, as it is the source of all creation. That is what Jesus meant when he told man that the kingdom of heaven is within. That also is what he meant when he said, "My Father and I are one." The time has come in human history when all men must know exactly what these teachings of the great illuminate really mean. The time has come when man's spiritual unfolding shall awaken the light of genius, cosmic consciousness, and Christ consciousness in all men. Man will never know the happiness and peace of one world of universal brotherhood until that day shall come. The impossibility of a centering nucleus in the atom is because of the fact that the atom is not pulled together from the inside. It is compressed together from the outside. This is one more example of the deceptions which motion practices upon those who look upon reflected effects with their outer senses, instead upon the cause of those effects with the inner mind. As these lessons proceed, we will take you right within the atom itself, so you can see every one of them as clearly as we see them. A 10-year-old boy could know the atom as familiarly as he knows his alphabet, if he but be made aware of the true nature of electricity and its utterly simple basic working principle, as so clearly demonstrated in the unknown wave in which all the secrets of the universe are locked to the outer vision of man. And the next chapter I will begin in another session. It's called We Define God. I just want to interject something here. There haven't been many times in my life where I just know something, but there have probably been in almost everyone's life a time when they just knew. For an example, I'll tell you, when I was young, and there was a contest where everybody bought a raffle ticket, and it was time for them to pull the one that would be the winner. Suddenly, for no good reason, out of the blue, I knew they were going to pull my name. And they did. I was a winner of some little something. I forget what it was now. But there's been other times in my life where there was no reason that I should know something, but I felt that I just knew it. And I think that's probably happened to a lot of people. And they can't define it, and they just write it off as a synchronicity or something. But I think that we're given these times for us to understand that we have a power within us to just know. And for seemingly no reason, we just know sometimes. So I don't know if anyone has had that kind of experience. You can leave your comment about it. It happened to my husband Bob one time. He's deceased now, but he was a great mathematician and a computer expert. And he would do work for companies that contracted his labor for maybe just 6 months to solve a problem that their people hadn't been able to work out. So one time Bob was called to a company, and right away they told him 4 mathematical problems that they had been dealing with for years. and didn't know the answer to, but really needed to know the answer to. And Bob, without thinking, and this scared him, it really did, it scared him, after he heard the first one of these problems, just said the answer. He just, without thinking, without doing any mathematical figurations or anything, it just came out of him. He just told them what it was. Shocked them because it was true, but it shocked Bob even more because he could not figure out, how did he know that? So I know there is a knowing, and it hits us sometimes. And it may be some little thing, like we know we're going to be safe, and we had been worried. And then suddenly we know, no, we're going to make it. We're going to be safe. We're going to be healed, or whatever it is that we suddenly just know. And if we were asked to describe why we know, we couldn't say, because we don't know why we know. We just know that we know. Now, I wish that would happen more often to me, and to everybody else as well. So if you have any comments about things that have happened to you where suddenly you just knew something, please comment on it. I would love to hear that. This is the Dove Lady, over and out for now.